welcome back to BackingBiz. My name's Claudia Neal-Shaw. I'm a business consultant and a wedding celebrant, and I am joined by bestseller, my dad, Canberra journalist, Tim Shaw. Welcome.
Hey, Claudia, great to be back.
This week, we're talking to Nikki Firth. She is an accountant from Your Accounting Sanctuary. She's not only my accountant, but she helps a lot of other small, medium and bigger enterprises through the numbers, which I know for a lot of us is a really challenging thing. Welcome, Nikki.
Thank you.
Nikki, during this time, I'm sure, you're helping businesses continue to navigate through the numbers, particularly during COVID-19. The government has made some provisions available around JobKeeper and ensuring that, lots of these different businesses are going to be supported. What has been one of the things that business owners should look out for during this JobKeeper process? What should they be mindful of?
I think it's really important to actually sit down and take your time over this. There is so much legislation out there and it's confused a lot of people, accountants included. It took us a long time to get our heads around it. But I think reading the government legislation, they've said that there's maybe 200,000 fewer businesses have actually applied for JobKeeper compared to what they expected. And I think a lot of that is because it's just so confusing and people are nervous about trying to make this turnover eligibility and employee eligibility, and it's just so much information so quickly. I think with the stress of everything else going on, people just wrote it off and decided not to apply. So I think it's really important to talk to your advisors if you're a business owner to try and get the most out of this. If you can be eligible for something like JobKeeper, it's incredible. It's a great step up for your business, especially if it's struggling.
Absolutely. And I think that, that was certainly my first step as a sole trader. I was saying, okay, what do I do now? And being able to call on you and to call on other people, who I rely on in my business, who are the professionals. We all go to different professionals to be able to support us. So, that's fantastic. We'll definitely be looking out for new developments in JobKeeper legislation this week.
What I think is interesting too is that this support package about maintaining and linking that employee to the business is really important, Nikki. But I think you're right. The 200,000 businesses that haven't applied didn't understand that the income from JobKeeper goes straight in full to the employee. They declare that JobKeeper income as part of the company's income for that financial year. And as a result, it is a complete deduction for the company. Furthermore, the importance of being able to pivot the business back into some kind of retail trading or whatever the consulting business is of that individual. So for those that haven't or didn't think they were eligible, I think your advice is right. If they haven't got an advisor, go online, find your local Nikki or contact you directly and just answer those quick Q&As, because I think, Claudia and Nikki, the more information that all business operators have right now is critical, because at the moment, the federal parliament's going to be legislating, do we extend the period of JobKeeper? The Treasurer has the triggers. Treasurer Josh Frydenberg was at the National Press Club last Tuesday and was asked specifically about this. And in fact, this week should have been budget week 2020. That's now been delayed to October. And that's where we'll get a full understanding of the level of financial commitment the federal government has given to these programs. So I think if you haven't reached out to a professional, now is the time to do it. But Nikki, I wanted to ask you, with so much talk now about home offices, so many large companies are now saying to their staff, you've been able to make this right. Well, hang on a minute. If I'm running a business from home, what are the kind of deductions that I should be applying for now for the 30 June 2020 financial year?
Well, I think a lot of people aren't going to want to hear this because numbers aren't their favourite thing. But I think it's really, really important to start taking note of the number of hours you're working from home, the number of expenses you're paying out for that would ordinarily be a business expense, whether it's stationery, whether it's a new printer, whether it's utilities, electricity and gas, your phone, your internet, everything like that that you are using for either work or business, you have to take a note of and keep the receipts, because unfortunately the ATO do audit some people, and a lot of it is by random choice. So if you are audited, they will often ask for the receipts for things like a new printer or a new desk or a new chair. It's so important to keep this information, because the expenses that most people can claim for this short period for 2020, but then going into 2021, it's skyrocketing. There's going to be so many more people claiming expenses, and I wouldn't be surprised if there's a few more audits on the way in a couple of years' time, just going back to check that people were claiming correctly. So get a spreadsheet, write down your hours, keep a list of your expenses, and that actually makes it a lot easier for either your accountant doing your tax return at the end of the year, or for you, if you're doing it yourself and you're self-assessing, makes it a lot easier if you've got just one area where all your information is, rather than a shoebox of credit card receipts and bank statements and all that kind of stuff.
I know I'm definitely one of those people who leaves it to the last minute, and I always say, oh, I'll keep digital copies, and then I come to it and I think, oh, I've really got to hunt for those now and make sure that, they're all prepared for financial year. Nikki, tell us, coming into this new financial year, it's obviously going to look very differently for some businesses. We're able to include some of that JobKeeper income into our projections for next year. What are some of the things that businesses should be mindful of coming into this next financial year, whether it's keeping more accurate records, way to set themselves up correctly?
Well, I think just going back to the JobKeeper and the cash flow boost that a lot of businesses have got this year, it's really important, if you have got either a spreadsheet or accounting software, it's really important to keep those two items separate in your income, because one of them isn't included for tax purposes and one of them is. So it's really important to have these items differentiated in your income so that the person doing your tax return can make sure they're picking up on the right figures. But I think if this whole scenario has brought out anything at all, the businesses that I'm seeing who are just going along on a steady path, they might not be growing anymore, but they're still employing people, they're still making a few sales, they're getting through. The ones that are doing it best are the ones who had a cash flow buffer. They had money in the bank that they'd saved over the past few months or years. They had something there to call on, their rainy day fund, in case something like this happened. And unfortunately, it has happened. The ones that are really struggling are the ones who had no money in the bank. They're now worrying how to pay their staff, how to pay their bills, and it's making it really difficult for them. So I think the biggest lesson we can learn, which, Claudia, you'll know I'm always shouting about, cash is king and it's the most important part of your business. Try and start this rainy day fund. If you're lucky enough that the JobKeeper is almost a little bonus to your business, put that aside. You don't have to spend that money if, it's not to cover employees' wages. If you're managing to do it with other funds, keep it aside. Start building that cash flow buffer that hopefully it never happens again. But if something like this does occur, you've got something there to help you. And it's
Nikki, I think that is such a great piece of advice, and that rainy day account is so important. I'm interested to know and your thoughts on some of those businesses that are struggling. I just wonder whether some of them in their industry create, if you like, a pool of expertise, and Tim does this, Nikki does that, Claudia does that, somehow that there could be a bit of a joint approach from some businesses to be able to navigate, maybe pivot their business for some online concierge delivery, whether it be that there's a package of marketing, sales and bookkeeping, so that some businesses can use that as a drop-down menu. Do you see some smaller traders actually working in concert with other businesses? And it's more than just a referral, isn't it? It's what makes your business offering unique to me in the 2021 financial year. What are your thoughts on that?
I think I've seen some amazingly creative ideas that have come out of this. If there's one good thing I can pull out of it, it's how incredible some businesses have just turned their offering around completely. I've seen videographers who are no longer, because they can't go out to location, they're now actually providing the equipment for people to film from home, and they're teaching them how to do that, and that's a new package that they're offering. So some tradies I have seen working together, because there was one electrician I was working with, couldn't afford to run all the vans around the city anymore. It was just too expensive, and they had to lay some people off, unfortunately. But now they're working with other tradesmen in the area, and they're kind of sharing the work and sharing the vehicles. It's amazing. And I think you mentioned earlier, a lot of businesses are now going to be employing people to work from home. I think you'll see a lot of people now not renting as big a space. They'll be smaller, they'll be hot desking. It's really interesting to think how it's going to affect businesses going forward. I think we're all going to be a bit more savvy about what expenses we're just spending for the sake of it and what we actually need. It's been a big eye-opener, but for some businesses who have, using the word, pivoted really well, they're going to fly at the end of this because they've just turned and they know where they're going and they've got a great plan. So it's really exciting to see what's going to happen with them.
We've seen so many businesses, I think, trying to master that, how do they do the most that they can with low overheads or with the amount of money or cash flow that they've got available. And I love that idea that those businesses who have been able to pivot successfully will be flying at the other end. And we all say now that we want to do business differently. We now have been forcibly given the opportunity to do business differently. And I wonder, how then sustainable that is moving forward. But Nikki Firth, thank you so much for joining us as our resident wizard accountant. We so appreciate you, and I encourage any business owner or anyone who is just needing some really good accounting advice to reach out to Nikki. She's based in Sydney at Your Accounting Sanctuary. We'll also include the details below. So thank you again, Nikki.
No, you're very welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim, Dad, for joining me again for BackingBiz.
Cash is king, and a sale isn't a sale until you are paid. Great to meet you, Nikki, and thanks, Claudia.
Yes, you too.